Welcome back to another episode. Today I'm going to show you how to use search and replace plugins and also how to use phpMyAdmin to identify and locate things within your WordPress database and how to change them. In specific, I'm going to change the HTTP to HTTPS, and I'm going to show you here a couple of things we're going to want to change. You see this URL? This is a link that I just put inside of a post, and it's HTTP. This image is also, if you inspect element, HTTP. So we're going to want to change those. And of course, there's plugins you could use. And I did another video on those particular plugins, but sometimes they don't work, or sometimes you want to try something different. So there's other plugins you could use, search and replace based plugins, and also code you can run on your MySQL database and using a tool like phpMyAdmin. All right, so to get started, what I want to do is recommend first that you take a backup of your database. And you could do this using a plugin, a backup plugin, or you could use phpMyAdmin to do that. If you're going to use phpMyAdmin, you'll log into your web host, you'll go to your control panel, you will then go to the database section, and where you'll see phpMyAdmin, you'll click on phpMyAdmin, choose your database, and then go to export, custom. Make sure all the tables are selected. Choose the zipped option for the compression. Scroll down and then click on go. And then you'll have a SQL zip file of your database saved, just in case you have to revert from a backup. Or you could just use your favorite backup plugin to accomplish this. All right, so I do want to go over the phpMyAdmin route first. This is an advanced way to approach this. So I'm going to show you some snippets of code in order to accomplish this. So I'm going to copy this first one, and I wrote these down first. I'm going to go one by one. You could speed this up by, putting them together, but I'm just going to go one by one for this demo purpose. So I'll copy the snippet of code, and then just remember, in this one, I'm going to be changing the HTTP to HTTPS in the links that are in my post. So in phpMyAdmin, I'll make sure I'm in the root of my database for my website. I'll click on SQL. I'm going to paste that code snippet there. And then I'm going to walk you through this. I'm updating the wp_post table. I'm setting the post content. I'm replacing the post content, searching for the HTTP, replacing with HTTPS. Click on go. And it shows you 46 rows have been impacted or affected. Let me go back here to my browser. Let me refresh. You see that changed to HTTPS. All right, so that worked. Didn't change the images because that's not what that particular snippet of code does. All right, so now what I'm going to do is go back. I'm going to start going one by one with these other snippets. Now, not all of them are going to do much on my local install because I don't have much inputted here, but you might need to use these. So I just want to show you what they are. So this one's updating the WP post table again, setting the GeoID, replacing the GeoID, looking for HTTP, replacing with HTTPS. Click on go. See 0 rows affected, and it's going to be like that for the next couple of snippets of code. But I just want to walk you through that process one by one. Paste that one there. This one's looking for the post meta table inside the post meta table, setting the meta value, replacing the meta value, looking for HTTP, replacing that with HTTPS, and go. All right, so 0 rows affected there. And then we're going to go to this one, and I'm assuming there might not be much happening here as well, but just wanted to show you just to be thorough. This one's looking for in the post meta table again, but this one's looking for the meta key, replacing the meta key with the HTTPS. Click on go. 0 rows affected. But now that, if you notice, what I want to show you now is the images should still be HTTP, which is not what we want. All right, so now the next snippet will resolve that. We're going to change the options table. We're going to update the options table. And there's a couple of ways you can do this, and I'm just showing you this way in the database first. Now I'm going to the wp_options table. I'm setting the option value to HTTPS. I'm searching for HTTP, replacing it with HTTPS. So I'm going to, place these snippets of code on my website, so you could just copy and paste them there. Or you could just pause the video and then just make sure you're following the correct syntax there. I'm going to click on go. This one should, yeah, it did affected 15 rows. So now if we go here, the image should break because it's searching for an HTTPS version of it, which obviously I don't have on my local server. But you see when we inspect elements, it worked. It converted it to HTTPS. So if your website is using HTTPS, which means you have an SSL certificate installed, this will work and it'll be, all your images should be updated. And you see it logged me out because it's supposed to be HTTPS. All right, so now I'm going to revert all that. I have these snippets of code here just to revert them. Go back here, and this just reverses the process. See, I swapped out the locations here of HTTPS and HTTP. So I'm just going to go backwards. Let's see what happens here. You see it changed it back and I'm logged in again. And you see this has not been impacted because this only changes the site URL and the home URL when you change this option here. So now I'm going to go backwards with everything. I don't believe I need those, so I'm going to skip those for now. If I run into problems, I'll just take care of them later. But this one I do need, because now I want to show you the plugin route. All right. So now those rows have been impacted. All right, so now let me just show you real quick the WP options table. This is where your site URL and your home URL is located. You can edit it here manually also without running the SQL commands. You can just click on edit and you can put in the S and then click on go. And the same thing with the home URL as well. You can just edit it, click on S, just click in there, put the type in the S and click on go. So you could do that there as well. Another way you could do this before I go on to the plugins route is you can go to your wp-config.php file. I have this snippet right here. I'm going to uncomment that for now. What this is doing is defining your wp_home and site URL to the HTTPS, and you would replace this with your domain name. Obviously, you would want to put your domain. I'm on my local server, so I'm just going to recomment that. And then another way you can also do it is if you want to use this snippet of code, which I introduced to you in a previous video. This is using the htaccess file. So you can use this to redirect the website from HTTP to HTTPS. And you would want to make sure that this is your URL, not the localhost WordPress, because that's mine, my local install. Or you can use this snippet of code right here. It's going to set the rewrite engine on. Rewrite condition, HTTPS is checking to see if it's on, and if it is on, it'll run this snippet of code here, which also will force all URLs to HTTPS on your website. So that would work as well. All right, so you can try out one of these, and those should work. All right, so now we went over the snippets of code that we could use with the database. We also checked out the defining of our home and site URL. Now, if you want to try another route, you really don't need to, but I have this snippet of code right here. I have it commented out now, but let me go back here first. I want to refresh. You see that's still the S because I haven't refreshed this. And now it's back to the HTTP. All right, so now I'm going to just, with my next snippet of code, I'm just going to target the image itself. I don't really recommend using this strategy, but it is a possibility if everything else is failing with your images not converting properly. So pretty much I created a function here, and then it's just, changing the protocol version for the images. All right, so once I uncommented this and I saved the functions.php file, that's where I inserted this code. You could also use a plugin like code snippets, to put in your custom PHP code if you want. Once I did that, let's go back to the browser. Let me refresh. And now the image has broken also. Now, the reason why the image broke is because my PHP code is forcing all the images to be HTTPS. Now, it's only focusing on the images. It's not focusing on the links in the content itself. I can create code for that as well, but it's really not necessary since there is plugins that can search and replace this for you, or you could just use the database code that I gave you to update the links on your site. So now I'll go back here. I'm going to re-comment this. I'm going to save it, go back here and refresh. Now it's back to normal. All right, so everything is back to normal. You inspect elements, HTTP. You already see this is HTTP. Let's go to our dashboard. Now let's look at the plugins. I already have them installed. I'm using Better Search Replace, Search and Replace, and Search Regex. All right, so if you want to add them, just click on Add New. In the search section here, type Search and Replace. And then these are the options that I'm working with now. So Search and Replace, Search Regex, and Better Search Replace. Install them, activate them one by one, and then you'll have them inside your Tools section here. So let's start off with Search and Replace. So now this one gives you an option to create an SQL file as a backup, which is great because you always want to have a backup of your database. I'm just going to go to Search and Replace. And you can type out HTTP, then colon, because we're searching for all instances of that. And we're going to replace it with HTTPS. And then we're going to select all tables. You can try to do a dry run just to see what happens, or you can just, go for it and just search and replace. I'm going to go that route and we'll see what happens. All right, so we see 12 tables were processed. Let's go back to the front of our site. Now we see I'm logged out and the images are not working because, again, now it's searching for the HTTP version. So this is a lot easier than using phpMyAdmin. That's why there's plugins, but it works. The search and replace plugin, works just fine. All right, so now I'm going to go back here, and just to speed things up, I'm going to use this here. I'm going to go back to my database. Now there's a couple of things you could do here. I'm going to refresh here, and you're going to see that's already set to HTTPS. So I could edit this here, like I told you before, and then I could edit this one. Okay, so now that works. All right, now let's see what happens. Now I'm back, my images are back. Or if I wanted, I could use that snippet of code that I chose from my text editor, this one right here. And I could just run that command in here as well. And this reverses what that plugin did. It's going to swap out the HTTPS for HTTP. 13 rows affected. It would have been 15, but we already did 2 of them manually. All right, so now I'm going to go back to my local site. Or matter of fact, let me show you the link. It's HTTPS. We only reverted back the options table, not the post table, so that's why that looks like that. All right, so now let's go back to our dashboard. I'm going to go to Tools. Going to go back to that one. And then I'm going to go here. I'm going to type out HTTPS and then HTTP. And I'm doing this just to revert it, just to get it back to the way it was. Select all the tables. All right, so now I'm just searching for all the HTTPS, changing it back to HTTP, making sure all my tables are selected. Save changes to the database. Not doing a dry run. Do search and replace. Let's see. Did everything work? And it did. It brought it back to the HTTP. All right, so we're back to where we need to be. Now let's try another plugin. We're going to go to Tools, Better Search Replace, and we're going to search for, again, HTTP, HTTPS. We're going to select all the tables. We are going to choose the GUID, and then we're going to, we're not doing a dry run. We're going to run this again. We're changing all the HTTP to HTTPS, choosing all the tables. We are going to replace the GUIDs, and we're not doing a dry run. So this should break the site, but it'll work. Okay, so you see it broke the site. So now I'm going to go back. I'm going to grab this snippet here. I'm going to go here to SQL. Put that in there. Just go, changing back the HTTPS to HTTP in the options. And then let me do this. And now I'm back in there. So now let me revert. Well, first let's see if it changed the link. And it did, HTTPS. All right, so now let me reverse that process. Tools, I'm going to use the same tool to reverse it. Now I'm looking for HTTPS, all the instances, and changing it back to HTTP, selecting all the tables, and choosing that and choosing that. I'm not doing a dry run. It's going to process it. And now everything is processed. Let's go back to the front, make sure it changed the way it should. Go back here. We see that's back to HTTP. All right, so that worked perfectly. Let's try the last option. Now tools, search regex. Now in this one, it's a little bit different. So I'm just going to show you a very quick example. This is not going to do the image URLs. It's just searching the post content. And these are the options it gives you. I'm going to replace all the HTTP with HTTPS. You see it changed the occurrences. Let's see if that worked. And it worked here. All right, so this is how you can do it either using phpMyAdmin or one of the 3 plugins in order to change the links or the image URLs of your website when you're changing from HTTP to HTTPS. All right, so now if you want to change your site URL and home URL, you could also do that here, right here. You can put in the S there, and you can put in the S here, and it'll change it and just save your changes. So that's another way to do that. All right, so we just went over 3 ways with plugins that you can, update the HTTP to HTTPS using these plugins: Better Search Replace, Search and Replace, and Search Regex. They're all available for free on the WordPress repository. And we also tried using these snippets of code. Take a moment, pause the video if you have to, and copy these. So just going over this, where this first one updates the WP post, set post data, replaces the post content, it's looking for HTTP, replacing with HTTPS. This one just reverses the process, this second one here. Now this one is changing the GUID, looking for HTTP, converting it to HTTPS. And again, this one just reverses the process. And this is looking in the post meta table, looking for the meta value and changing it to HTTPS there. And this one reverses. This is also looking in the post meta, looking for the meta key and changing it to HTTPS. Now this is for your options table. This is changing the home URL and site URL and other options as well, changing it to from HTTP to HTTPS. And this one reverses the process. This code down here is just for your htaccess file. You replace that in your htaccess file of your root directory right at the very top. This one, and of course you'll put your domain name there. This is the standard one that most people are familiar with. This is another one. You wouldn't use both, but this is another option you could do. This one has a conditional check to see if the HTTPS is on. And if it is, it'll run this code here and redirect all the unsecure HTTP versions to HTTPS using htaccess file. Now in your wp-config, we went over this snippet here, which is defining your home and site URL to the HTTPS versions. Copy that down if you need to, and make sure you have your domain name. And then we also looked over this snippet of code here that changes all the HTTP protocols for the images to HTTPS. Copy that down if you need to by pausing the video. And that's pretty much how you do it. I mean, there's plugins that you could use, and I did a video on those, but these are some other ways in which you can, change the website's HTTP to HTTPS or revert it if you need to. All right, so hopefully you found this episode helpful, where I showed you how to use plugins to do a search and replace or use phpMyAdmin in order to use SQL to run the commands for you. And I also showed you some other ways with the wp-config file and the htaccess file, some snippets of code you could use there. Again, this one is in the wp-config.php file, and this is your htaccess file. One of these will go in your htaccess file, and these snippets here are for the database queries. I'll put this on my website so you can copy and paste, or just pause the video and make sure you copy them as you need. Now, you would only be using one of these sets on the one on top if you're converting from HTTP to HTTPS. I just included this second row for each one just to revert the process. All right, hopefully you found this episode helpful. I just wanted to show you another way, to accomplish a very standard procedure of, going from HTTP to HTTPS. This is your database with phpMyAdmin. Get familiar with it because it might help you, to better manage your website in the future. Hopefully you found this episode helpful. If you did, give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe because I'll be giving you more tips and tricks on how to manage your WordPress website for peak performance, for search engine optimization, for top security, and to make sure that you do well with your website online. Again, thumbs up, subscribe, and I will see you next time. Take care.